Nigeria's former president says he's disappointed that his country didn't sign on to the new free trade zone that 44 nations on the continent have agreed to a week ago in Kigali. Olusegun Obasanjo speaking at the Africa CEO Forum taking place in Abidjan. Obasanjo breaking ranks with the man he backed the last time around, the incumbent Muhammadu Buhari, who's up for re-election in a year's time. Joining us in our Paris studios, Imad Mesdoua, senior consultant for control risks, which is a risk consultancy. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We saw Obasanjo, a larger-than-life character in Nigeria, saying only someone from the government can answer that question, visibly upset about that. Is this really just Obasanjo talking about international trade, or is he breaking ranks with Buhari?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. First of all, his comments represent a lot of criticism that's been aimed and targeted at President Buhari and his administration for backing out of the agreement. Nigeria has been involved in the negotiations for the African CFTA since 2015, and it took everyone surprised when the president announced that he would not travel to Kigali to sign the agreement. But then, at the same time, his criticism comes at a time where there is a lot of crystallization of criticism around the president for a potential run in the 2019 presidential elections. And so President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo, is catalyzing a lot of the disappointment that some of Buhari's previous supporters have been expressing in recent weeks in the press, and the kind of disenchantment that exists in parts of the ruling party.
Yeah, because last time in 2015, Obasanjo playing the kingmaker, his southwestern region voting for the northerner against the incumbent who is from the southeast. Is that going to change next year?
Well, I think the dynamics in 2019 are going to be very different. 2018 is going to be a year of politicking, and a lot of jockeying is about to happen, both in the ruling All Progressives Congress, the APC party, and the opposition PDP, the People's Democratic Party. Buhari commands to this day a very strong following in the north. But the PDP has said very publicly that it's going to zone its presidential ticket to a northerner. Now, it hasn't. No leader has emerged, no charismatic and national figure with the kind of history that Buhari has emerged within the PDP yet. But there are some names that are starting to circulate, and one of those is former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, whose name keeps coming back as somebody who could represent the PDP if he wins the primaries this summer.
And this because of Buhari's past health issues, where he was away all that time.
There were a lot of questions, obviously, as you say, around President Buhari's medical absence in London. He was away for 5 months. And during that time, even within his own party, you had criticism and a number of figures that were starting to, behind the scenes, show their interest and perhaps hint even at leaving the APC to join the PDP should the president not be able to run again.
I just want to ask you about what's going on in the Northeast, what with the liberation earlier this month of those schoolgirls who'd been kidnapped by Boko Haram in the town of Dapchi. It seems to mark a turning point. The government saying, hey, yes, we have been negotiating with Boko Haram, secret talks in neighboring Chad. A complete change for Nigeria's government, or have there always been back-channel talks?
Well, I think there were back-channel talks in under the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan, and certainly that was the case when trying to rescue the Chibok girls. There were press reports about those back-channels. But I think there is a growing realization that a military strategy alone cannot put an end to an insurgency like the one we've witnessed in the Northeast since 2009.
So is it a turning point?
It's an important moment, definitely, because the release of the Dapchi girls suggests that even within Boko Haram now, there are factions. One of those is the Al-Barnawi faction, as we say, that has actually showed its willingness to negotiate and its willingness to release prisoners like the Dapchi girls. So it's an important moment, and it suggests that the Nigerian government is actually serious about resolving this issue, particularly, as we were saying earlier, in this important election year, this political year.
Is it a show as well of weakness on the part of a Nigerian military, which up to now had vowed to crush Boko Haram?
Well, the government has said that Boko Haram has been defeated, but in reality, the group has only been degraded. It hasn't been entirely defeated. From an operational point of view, the group has been pushed back. It used to control large swaths of the northeast and now only is entrenched in non-urban centers, in particular Sambisa forest. And so the government, this administration, has made some progress against the group. But has the group been defeated entirely? No, and it requires more than just a military solution. It requires political talks, but more importantly, it requires a holistic solution around socioeconomic grievances that local populations have faced for decades now. Let's not forget that underlying this terrorist and insurgency issue in the Northeast is a huge humanitarian issue with thousands and thousands of people that have been displaced. So all of that presents enormous challenges for this administration and whichever administration comes to rule in 2019.
Imad Mesdoua of Control Risks, so many thanks for stopping by our studios.
Thanks for having me.